to our 2024 Politics and Pints. My name is Jackie Dzelski, President and CEO at the Manatee Chamber, and we are thrilled that you're here for another sellout annual event with the Manatee Chamber of Commerce, and that alone deserves a round of applause. I hope as you checked in, you saw that on the registration table, we do have copies for everyone, or for, at least for those of you interested in the Chamber's 2024 State Business Agenda. We may reference it today during some of the follow-up Q&A once we hear from our senator and representatives. I would like to, as the first order of business, recognize your chairman of the board, Janelle Van Hoos, and first husband of the chamber, her husband, Jonathan Van Hoos. Janelle is at the helm of our board of directors. And now I would ask that you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Wonderful. Thank you. And please be seated. As you're seated, if you would silence your mobile devices, we would appreciate that. Wanted to give a shout out to the team at Manatee Educational Television. They are recording today's Politics and Pints so that it will be available for everyone's viewing pleasure who was not able to join us this evening. Now I would like to move on to an introduction of the elected officials beyond our senator and representatives who were scheduled to join us this evening. I'll ask that they please stand and we'll hold our applause until the end. From the Manatee County Board of County Commissioners and Port Authority, I see Chairman Mike Ron, as well as Port Authority Chairman Kevin Van Ostenbridge, Commissioner George Cruz, and Commissioner Ray Turner. From the City of Bradenton, Mayor Jean Brown, Vice Mayor Jane Coker, Councilwoman Pam Coachman, Councilwoman Lisa Gonzalez-Moore, Councilwoman Marianne Barnaby, and Councilman Josh Kramer. From the School Board of Manatee County, Chairman Chad Choate. And also from Congressman Vern Buchanan's office, we have Tara Polton, Susanna Morrison, and Max Goodman. So now please, your appreciation for those who were able to join us. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the platinum level investors in the chamber. You will see their names and logos on the banner behind me. We appreciate the significant financial investment they make in the Manatee Chamber, well beyond their annual dues. And next up, I would like to honor today's event sponsor. Spectrum by Charter Communications has been a long-time sponsor of Politics and Pints, as well as our pre-session event, which is Pancakes and Politics, as we like to say. Before the men and women representing us in Tallahassee go to Tallahassee, we're all gung-ho, we're up early, we're eating pancakes. By the end of the session, it's time for a beer. So thank you so much to Spectrum by Charter Communications. We have Albie Kaminsky, who is Spectrum's Senior Director of State Government Affairs, here to give a welcome on behalf of our presenting sponsor.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And one more time, let's give Jackie and the rest of her team a round of applause for packing this entire area. We're going to have to call a fire marshal. Oh my gosh, I love this venue too, so thank you guys again for having us. I think last year somebody made a comment too of when you stand up on this stage you feel like a rock star and you're getting ready to sing some karaoke, but I feel like a stand-up comedian here. Right, so I'm not going to sing today, but I will tell a few jokes. So a couple hundred chamber members walk into a bar. I got nothing. I'll stick to selling cable. So again, Jackie, thank you again for that warm introduction. Name is Albie Kaminsky with Charter Communications. As many of you all know in the community is Spectrum. I'm joined by a lot of my colleagues here today. We've got David Garcia, who's the newest member of our team. David, why don't you stand up really quick? Let's give him a round of applause. So David Garcia is the newest member of our team. He joined about 6 weeks ago and is going to be the new local point of contact here in Manatee County. Lives over in the Tampa area. We won't hold that against him though, but because he has fantastic Manatee County roots. So I look forward to introducing him to a lot of the folks here in this room. We're also joined by Jessica Caruso. If you remember Jessica, was helping in this county as well, but has now been promoted into a government and community strategy role to help with strategic partnerships and strategic events in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. And if you guys know that role and if it sounds familiar, it's because it was held previously by an all-star in this community that everybody knows, Leah Brown. Leah, give a quick wave here. So, Leah, if you ever have a big idea and a big event, you want to go to this gal over here. She's fantastic. But again, all of that said, thank you guys again for coming today. At Spectrum, we're dedicated to connecting the communities that we serve. Ultimately, that's whether that's serving our existing customers, our 100,000 existing customers here in Bradenton and Manatee County, or extending our service out into the couple hundred Manatee County residents that didn't have access to the internet at all. And we have this table right here to thank for that. So again, thank you to the Manatee County delegation for their efforts in spearheading the rural broadband initiatives, for the chamber for sponsoring a lot of these initiatives and making it a priority, and to the folks in the back table here from the Manatee County Board of County Commissioners and the city, again, for all these people for a combined effort, because we're focused on our existing footprint, our existing customers, but we don't want to leave the hundreds of people in Manatee County that don't have access to the internet behind. So again, that's my corporate speech. Today is not about Spectrum. Today is not about all this. Again, we are here today. If you heard me at the pancakes in politics, we said that we had the best legislative delegation in the Florida legislature. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about why, because they're going to give us a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. We've got the best delegation here that is representing you all in leadership positions already, and then continuing to ascend within different leadership positions. I'm biased to one who kicked me out of the door and fired me when he was terming out. But again, thank you. Thank you, Senator Boyd, for your continued mentorship and guidance here, and your service to this community, along with everybody else here at this table. Again, you have a lot of key victories in Manatee County. Excited to learn a little bit more about them. So thank you again. Enjoy the pints. Enjoy the politics.
Thank you, Albie. We also want to give special thanks to our venue host this evening. So that would be Oscura and Ben Bacher, along with his partners. Ben is one of the owners and managing partner of Oscura. So Ben, some people, this is their first chance to visit Oscura. So tell us a little bit more.
Good evening, everybody. My partners and I would love to welcome you to Oscura. If you haven't been here before, we really specialize in live, local, original music. We launched this business here in Old Manatee because we know that downtown is expanding and we believe in this area, so we're really proud to be here. Don't forget that during the day we're here for coffee and tea. We're a great meeting space as well. And keep an eye on our calendar. We love to do everything here, not just music, but we're holding craft markets, we're holding open mic nights, we're open to the community to do all kinds of workshops. And also, more importantly for all of you here, we are actually an event space as well, so you can rent this place out for private events. We love hosting private events, completely a la carte. We can cater it, you can cater it, whatever you want. We've got a great team here, a great stage, a great system that can help you in your events as well. And we're also extremely happy chamber members. So thank you all for visiting us today, and thank you for everyone, and thank you for the chamber for hosting it here. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. With that, I do want to give a shout out to the Chamber's Legislative Committee. This is a group of members, some of you in this room, in fact, who serve on the Chamber's Legislative Committee. One of their main pieces of work each year is drafting the Chamber's state legislative platform to present to our Board of Directors for their consideration and adoption. So if you are a member or have been a member of the Manatee Chamber's Legislative Committee, would you give a wave so that we can honor the work that you all have done? A couple people here on the stage, likely. could be waving as well. For those regular attenders, you frequent flyers of chamber politics and pints or pancakes and pints, you know that Casey Welch with the University of South Florida is the chairman. He would typically be emceeing this, but Casey, I believe, is still enjoying another day of spring break, and so he sends his apologies to not be able to be here. I will do my best to represent Casey and the committee well. So, quick introduction, and then we will turn the microphone over to our speakers today. So the 2024 legislative session, as you all know, just wrapped up this past month, now that it's April 1st. And there was some joke in having this on April 1st, but I don't know what it is. But a couple of statistics around the Florida legislative session. 1,901 bills or proposed committee bills were filed this year during the legislative session, and over 320 of those bills passed both chambers of the legislature. The House and Senate presented a budget to the governor of $117.5 billion. So I will tell you, from healthcare to workforce development, from education to energy, from infrastructure to homelessness, pocketbook issues and regulation, the men and women who represent us in Tallahassee have as important policies as ever to consider, as they did this year, and many inroads were made for next year's legislative session already, believe it or not. If Florida was its own country, we would boast the 15th largest economy on the planet. So think about that. The decisions that are made in Tallahassee absolutely have an impact on this incredible state of Florida. So to introduce our speakers, Senator Jim Boyd, District 20. In addition to a number of other committee assignments, Senator Boyd is the chair of the Banking and Insurance Committee and vice chair of the Agriculture Committee. Representative Mike Beltran, District 70. In addition to other committees, he is the vice chair of the Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Development Committee this past session. Next to him, representing District 71, Representative Will Robinson. His committee assignments this session were to chair Civil Justice Subcommittee, as well as a number of other assignments. And then at the end of the table, representing District 72, our delegation chairman, Tommy Gregory, current committee assignments including chairing the Judiciary Committee, as well as other assignments. So we will give each of these men a few minutes to share some thoughts and insights into this most recent legislative session. Once all have had a chance to speak, we are going to open up the floor to questions from our chamber members. I'll have a few ground rules to share with you as a reminder when we get to that section. If I say it now, some of you might forget. So with that, we are going to kick it off with Senator Jim Boyd.
Yay.
Thank you, and thanks, Jackie and the Chamber, for hosting this event. It's really incredible to see the number of people that come out to probably celebrate the fact that we're back home, so your freedoms and your finances are okay for a while, since the legislature has adjourned. And you also want to thank Spectrum, Albie. Just to set the record clear, I did not fire him. He sold out for the big corporate dollars. I guess 40 grand a year as a legislative aide just wasn't enough, Albie, but that's okay. And David, welcome. Glad you're here. You are in good company with at least two of us. Representative Beltran and I represent part of Hillsborough County, so we're glad you're here as well. But thank you all for being here and for being willing to share some of your thoughts after we get through our little presentations. And Jackie mentioned a couple things I was going to start with, and that's the budget and where we ended up in terms of that. But I will caveat everything that we say tonight with the budget hasn't been signed yet, and a number of bills have been signed already, and some of us have had some of those signed, but there's still a number of bills awaiting the governor's signature, and hopefully he'll agree with us that they were all good bills and get those signed. But there's that one little caveat that we have to kind of wait until everything is finalized to know exactly what happened this legislative session. But in terms of the bills that Jackie mentioned, I'm actually very glad that we didn't have a large amount of bills that we trying to run through the system every year. Past years, there have been 3,000 or more, and usually 300 to 400 end up passing and getting through the governor's scrutiny and hopefully signature. This year, as Jackie mentioned, it was a fair amount less, and still a number that were passed through both chambers that we wait to see what happens with. So that's not a bad year when you have less bills than you had the year before, in my opinion. A couple of things that I'm very happy with and proud of that we did as a legislature, and some of us will steal each other's thunder, so I apologize for that. But our budget also pays off $500 million in state debt, and it also sets aside $10 billion in reserves, in addition to $1.5 billion in broad-based tax relief that comes back to our communities and to our residents and to our citizens, which I think is one of the most important things we do every year, and that's trying to find ways to give taxpayers money back. I say this next section with fingers crossed that these all pass the governor's scrutiny in our budget, but Manatee County will do very well this session in the funding arena, providing everything gets across the finish line. And I'll just go through a couple of them very quickly. And these were bills that I sponsored, but also had good partners in the House that helped get these across the finish line. So they will probably talk about these as well. Manatee County, we've got about $21 million in funding, as well as an additional sum for Rattlesnake Key that we're hopefully going to get across the finish line this year. City of Bradenton, just under $8 million. City of Palmetto, $2.5 million. City of Anna Maria, $594,000. City of Bradenton Beach, $625,000. State College of Florida, $18 million. That's directed at the parish campus, which we're all very excited about. Also, New College of Florida, $6.25 million. Easter Seals, which serves our broader community in a very, very good way, $6.5 million, and that's for some programs that they're collaborating with around the state. Moat Marine, $5 million, and Operation Wounded Warrior, $600 million. So again, fingers crossed that the governor agrees with all of us that those were good initiatives to be funded, and we'll see soon how those shake out. A couple of things I worked on this year in the legislature. I had I think 8 or 9 bills, but a couple I'd like to highlight. One of them was Senate Bill 330, which is the Behavioral Health Teaching Hospital Bill, and that designates teaching hospitals with medical schools in the state of Florida, to begin with, that provide mental health training and additional dollars for psychiatric and psychologist residents and the like, to provide services to that part of our community that doesn't necessarily get what they deserve every year. So very happy about that. My Safe Florida Home program, which we reinstituted 3 years ago. Again, this year we appropriated about $225 million for that program, and this year we're prioritizing it from low-income individuals and homes up to anyone else, but it goes through a scrutiny from low-income at certain levels, and then gets to just the general population for what's left in the program. One thing that we've worked on the past couple of years, we got across the finish line this year, was a dental services bill that provides some guidelines and parameters around these online orthodontic treatments that in some cases have gone bad and left people hurt and harmed and with no recourse. So we put some guardrails around that this year. Also a steel bill that requires that public works projects use U.S. steel unless it goes over cost guidelines and the like, but that allows U.S. steel to be used in our great state. And then finally, there was a transportation facility designation bill, which essentially is road naming bills, and a young soldier who was killed in the Army in a training exercise, Nicholas Panapinto. We've started the bill with his name, and a Memorial Highway out in North Palmetto will be designated him, and then there were a number of others that were added to this bill along the way that have done significant things for our state. But I wanted to highlight Army Specialist Nicholas Panapinto because he's from our community and sadly lost his life. So our sympathies continue to go out to his family for that tremendous loss. Those are some of the things I worked on. Be happy to talk about some of the other things as we go along, but I'll stop there and let Representative Beltran take over.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Good to be here. For those who don't know me, I'm Mike Beltran, represent South Hillsborough and North Manatee counties. I got most of the coastal areas north of the river, and start at Big Bend by the power station there in Hillsborough County and come all the way down to the Ellington Mall. So So if you're in North Manatee and you're a little closer to the bay, you're probably in my district. But it's good to be here. I see a lot of familiar faces in the audience. I guess I'll start with one of my favorite bills from the session was the social media bill. I didn't draft it. I wasn't like named as the sponsor of it or anything, but I thought it was a really good bill. It was something that the speaker and a couple of my friends were doing. It's a really good bill, and there was a lot of controversy and debate about the bill. We passed something. We sent it over to the Senate. Senate passed it. Sent it to the governor. He actually vetoed the first bill that we sent, and then we took another bill and we made a few changes. Really, basically kept the substance of the bill, but gave some better definitions and changed the age cutoff for the social media regulation. And the governor said, "Well, I'm not going to sign the first one because you're sending me something better." And indeed, we did. And so that was really my favorite bill of the session. And people talk about First Amendment, and they talk about this is for kids, right? So let's just orient ourselves to what we're saying. We're saying that what the bill said was it said that if you're a pornography website or you do addictive social media, that the kids are not supposed to be able to access that sort of thing without going through a real vetting process, not just click, hey, I'm over 18, but like, you have to put in some kind of genuine bona fide verification. And the porn part of the bill is easy. That's easy part of the bill. I don't think we had to spend too much time on that. But the social media part, they have these things, these features like infinite scroll, and essentially they design the app and they say, not only are we going to allow you to friend people and post photos and post your work and talk about things that are going on in your life, but how can we make people spend as much time on this app as possible? How can we keep them on the app? How can we make sure they come back to the app multiple times, even in the middle of the night and things like that? There are scientists and psychologists and marketing people, whatever kind of professional works on this thing, and they actually sit around and they think about how to make the thing more addictive. And I was thinking back to my experiences with litigating cases, and that's really the way I learn about things. And who else did that sort of thing? Who sat in a room trying to say, not only do we have a product that happens to be addictive that some people have a problem with, but how can we make it more addictive and get them to come back and do more and more and more? That was what the tobacco companies did, right? And we know what the consequence for what the tobacco companies did is they essentially have a handcuff on their advertising. About $100 billion years turned over to the government for smoking cessation programs. They were sued. The entire market capitalization of Philip Morris and RJR, Lorillard, all the tobacco companies was at stake in this massive litigation and the settlement agreement and so forth. So they suffered a real consequence, and there was a real outrage. And social media is doing the exact same thing. So we've clamped down on that, and one of the first states to do so. I'm proud to have been a part of that, especially not really seeing eye to eye with the leadership on all things, I would say, but definitely was happy to be in lockstep with the leadership on that. I guess you guys know what I mean on that, but you've been following the blow by blow in Tallahassee, I can see. We also had a really nifty thing in the tax package. We said, everyone's always complaining. I was actually speaking with a gentleman this evening before I came up here, and he was concerned about his property insurance rates, as many people are. The rates continue unabated, notwithstanding the insurance companies coming to the legislature and demanding special provisions designed to ostensibly to reduce the rate of increase or stop the rate increase of the insurance policies. We give them the reforms they ask for, and the rates continue to increase unabated. But at least the government now can stop being part of the problem. So we said we're going to reduce the taxes on the insurance policies. So we shouldn't be taxing insurance policies at all, right? I mean, you're not coming in to a restaurant and buying a meal. You're not buying a drink. You're not buying even really a service. And frankly, we don't tax a lot of services anyway. What is an insurance? Insurance is really just a contract. It says, I'm going to pay you X thousand dollars a year. And if my home gets blown away in a hurricane, you're going to pay to repair or replace it. It's really not, you're not really buying a service. It's just like a contract, hopefully a contract that you never use, right? And I don't think that's the sort of thing should be taxed. And we certainly shouldn't be taxing that when the rates are going up. So we're taking our foot off the gas a little bit on that. There was also a bill I've been working on for many years. I started it, I think, in 2019 or 2020, and it was to expand the newborn infant surrender program. So we have a law that a mother who is overwhelmed with her newborn baby, she cannot care for the baby, is able to surrender that baby, no questions asked, at a police, fire station, hospital type of facility. We're expanding the period in which she's eligible to do so up to a month. That's an important program. Unfortunately, here in other states, you see women do drastic things if they don't have access to that type of program. And obviously, I got some pretty strong feelings on life issues, but whether you agree with me or not on that, I think we can probably agree on expanding the newborn infant surrender program. So that was another good thing that we did. I voted against the budget. I guess my good friend Jim Boyd was talking about some of the projects and talking about the budget. I didn't do a whole lot of projects, and I voted against the budget, and I'll share with you a little bit about why. I guess in terms of the projects, I'm very judicious in the projects I do. I put in a couple. I think I got one. I wasn't paying that close attention, quite frankly. And that sounds ridiculous, but when you think about it, well, what is a project? A project is, I'm going to say to the people in Tallahassee, to someone in Jacksonville, Pensacola, Key West, you should pay for something in my district, right? That's what I'm saying. That better be a pretty compelling thing, because he's going to say, Beltran, you should go tax the people in South Riverview or North Manatee or wherever taxpayers are, and you're going to go pay for something in Key West or Jacksonville or Pensacola. And if it's a port, or it's a big piece of public infrastructure or university or something that's going to benefit people throughout the state, fine. But if it's some very, very local thing or some private business thing, why am I taxing my constituents and everyone to pay for something? And frankly, more importantly, why are my constituents going to have to now pay for something in someone else's district? The budget has gone up. The budget was $89 billion when I was elected in 2018. The budget as passed was $117.5 billion. Every year I ask, why is the budget coming up? And they usually have had better answers for me than they had this year. That started with the CARES Act dollars, and people on my side of the aisle need to be accountable for that. When we were in charge in Washington, we were not fiscal conservatives. We did a lot of good things. Being fiscal conservatives was not one of them. Not even back in 2000 to 2008 either. We have not shown our example of being fiscal conservatives. It started with the CARES Act, then it went to the so-called Biden bucks. And they're not Biden bucks. It's not Biden's money. It's not even, I would say it's your money, but that's not even true, because he's borrowing money from China to pay for a lot of that. So some of it's your money, some of it's China money, some of it's money that your children and grandchildren will pay for. Then those Biden bucks worked their way through the system, and then they said there are more programs. They were kind of stealth programs. They didn't get all the attention of the CARES Act and the Biden bucks, but those programs now are inflating our budget. So Washington's sending tens of billions of dollars down and forcing us to spend it. That goes on our balance sheet. That's why the budget's high. And I said, okay, when will those be used up? They said, in 2024, those will be all. So now they're all through the system, and the budget is we're still kind of pegged at that set point, at that high budget. I said, is there any more big money from Washington coming through? I said, what's your excuse this year? And they didn't have one. And I said, well, the budget better go down. The speaker and the governor said that we were going to try to save for a rainy day and get back to a more, an increase that's more commensurate with population and inflation growth. Because there's been population growth, there's been inflation growth, not 50% in the last 5.5 years. It's not been that much. And so there was really no reason for the budget to go up again this year with all that money having worked its way through the system. So I had to vote against the budget, and hopefully the governor will use his veto pen. But I'll leave it there, and maybe we'll pick up on some other threads later on. Thanks.
I just love me some Mike Beltran. We are both fiscal conservative Republicans, and we may disagree from time to time on a few things, but I think that's how the legislature should work, by the way. Mike mentioned the budget. I certainly have a complete disagreement. I voted for the budget, proud of the budget. I think the budget funds a lot of necessary priorities for not only this area, but for our state. And it is interesting, and we had the same debate at a Liberty Caucus event. It is interesting when you talk about certain projects. I bet you if I look at Miami-Dade's projects, I may think that they're not important. But I look at Manatee County's projects, and I think they're important. And I agree with Mike, though. I mean, there's a lot of projects that are sent to me by nonprofits or even city or county officials that I say no to. I'm not going to file that. And then you move on from there. Even the ones that you file, the sub-appropriations chair says, you know what, those don't pass muster. And then you move on from there, and the main appropriations chair says, you know what, that one doesn't pass muster. And then you have our Senate partners, and then I like actually the process that our governor takes, which is whatever projects do not meet statewide interests, he vetoes. And I expect him to do a lot of the same. So while I agree with Mike in the sense that we should always, as fiscal conservatives, look to see how we can make things more efficient and more productive, I do believe that this budget accomplishes that, and we can always nitpick this or that or this or that, and we should do that. I mean, we should debate that. And you know what Mike is bringing up is something we should be debating, because we should it's your money, like Mike said. It is your money, and it should be something that we are very mindful of every session, not just when we are in good times, and certainly not just when we are in bad times. But I also love Mike Beltran too, because not only was he with us from the very beginning, and he was with me in the Florida House, and we were elected together, but also hopefully we'll win together. But this is just Mike for you. I'll give you a quick story. Oh, geez. So I had a fairly non-controversial bill. It actually became a little bit more controversial. It's about merging of easements. It's very esoteric. Only real estate lawyers pretty much understand it, or are great skilled litigation lawyers. And I feel I'm a very trusted legislator. Very few legislators ask me questions about my bills. And I haven't had a question on the House floor on any one of my bills in the past 3 years. And I think they've been tough bills. I mean, some have been Holmes Beach, parking garage issues and hemp issues. I mean, they haven't been easy, issues. So we had this one bill, and Mike, like a gentleman, comes up to me and he's like, Will, I just don't like your bill. I'm going to have to vote against it. So, okay. I was normally going to what's called waive close, which means not comment or debate my my bill, because I had it in the bag. Why am I going to debate something when I have all the votes? But Mike came up to me and said, I'm going to vote against your bill. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try to win him over. So I spent that night and I drafted this beautiful debate. I mean, I even got staff involved, and we had all the stats and the figures. And so I give this debate, and you press the button. I look up there, and it's 119-1. Every Democrat voted for the bill, but Mike stuck to his principles, and we need that in the legislatures. Those that aren't scared to take the tough positions, and maybe it's not the popular stuff. But I love me some Mike Beltran. One good thing about getting older is I can't quite remember what I said during the breakfast that we had a few months ago. But what I think I said was two things, and they both actually, I think, were accomplished. One is we are blessed not only to have I think the best delegation in the area, but we saw presiding officers on their actual and 100% game this session, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. Mike mentioned House Bill 1, which was the social media, the youth social media bill. It was vetoed. House Bill 1, the number one priority of the Speaker of the Florida House, was vetoed by the governor. Other speakers, session could have gone off the rails. I mean, there was a little bit of a talk about an override. Now, I wasn't certainly prepared to go there, but there was a little chatter about possibly having to go there with a conservative Republican governor. And the compromise that was reached between the Speaker and all those involved in the bill really helped not put the membership and maybe even the Senate in that position to have to deal with that. So overall, I would call this session just run by a bunch of professionals. And I think we're actually in back page news a lot. You didn't hear a lot about us because I think it was just doing your job. We did so much last session. We really were just tidying up a few things. The Senate president did a wonderful job in their chamber passing a few major pieces of legislation that we got through as well. So I would just call it a professional session. And then the second thing, every second session in a term, you sometimes have something that is unusual, that you can't predict. I wasn't in office then, but one year we had the Parkland shooting, unfortunately, and we had to deal with that during session. COVID was the second session of my first year. We had a redistricting issue the second year of my second session. And this year we didn't really have that. So I think from top to bottom, we just had a very, very, very professional session that was run by professional people. And the next person to speak was Judiciary Chair, did a professional job, and actually technically he was my boss. So I was Civil Justice Chair. So I think in the Judiciary silo, Mike was involved in Judiciary silo. We just did a lot of great work. Something that I'm sure Tommy will speak about went some interesting directions. But I spoke about this at the breakfast. We talk a lot about the legislative branch, the executive branch, but equally as important is our judicial branch. And I think we did a lot of great things to make sure that our judicial branch is well protected and well funded, because those are important folks that make very important decisions and really needs to frankly be apolitical and to make the very best decision that they can to make sure that our lives are protected and our rights are protected many times. So I'll turn it back over to Chair Gregory for his thoughts.
I don't know why Mike's leaving when I start talking. That's weird. You know, this is good that you guys all went first. It just makes me think how proud I am to serve in this delegation. You know, I don't know how many minutes we've been going now, but hopefully you're a little bit bored. If you're a little bit bored, that means you have a good delegation. That means that you have people up here, and each one of us can do it. We can slip into the story of a controversial bill or one that was very important to us or important to our community. And, you know, it goes to something that I talk about a lot, and that is whoever you vote for the serious person in your race. Now, sometimes, tongue-in-cheek, and I'll say, although I'm serious, I'll just say, don't vote for the crazy person. That's your whole test. Don't vote for crazy. Vote for serious people to do this job, and you've got that here. You know, Senator Boyd and his ability to take really tough bills and push them through the Senate and then work with us in the House to make sure that we're fully educated and that we can run those tough bills is really wonderful. Mike Beltran and his ability to debate and push back, to be the solo no vote on a bill takes a lot of courage, like Will said. And that kind of serious debate and pushback from Mike Beltran makes us better legislators. And then it does. We'll give him an applause. He's not here, but he pushes us hard. And I'll give a shout out to Will Robinson and his chairmanship work in civil justice. By the way, the Judiciary Committee in the House, one of the busiest committees. In the last 2 years, we had 865 bills. 865 bills. So we are evaluating all of those while we're there. And frankly, many of them are not good. And it would be very easy as a chairman to just say, sorry, your bill is bad, I'm just not going to hear it. But that's not what Will does, because Will is a professional. And he's very good at his job. And he brings each one of those members that files a bill, and he gives them an opportunity. He says, hey, come in, let's work on your bill. Let's try to make this bill good enough that we can give it a hearing, that we can get it passed if it's good law. And he saves a lot of people's bills, which is good, not just for them personally, but it makes them a better legislator, and then it brings good laws to Florida. So I got to witness that firsthand, and that was a real pleasure this last couple of years. It would be very easy to, as I said earlier, talk about some of the bills that I ran, but I'll wait for questions on that. But I will just bring one thing to your attention. You know, Manatee County and Sarasota County and Hillsborough County, just think about what the population of them was not too many generations ago. It's not too many years ago, about 100 years ago, that Manatee County had less than 10,000 people. 100 years ago, the state of Florida had how many people in it? Who knows? Yeah, just give me a guess, anybody. What? 2 million? 1 million people. 100 years ago, the entire state of Florida had 1 million people. Good guess. So just think about the growth and where we are now at 22 million people and where we're going. So we've gone from a state with only 1 million people, now we're the third most populous state in the country. We're very close to picking up another congressional representative during this past census. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years? But if the past 10 years is any indication, we're going to be much larger again. And so you know where that growth is coming from, where the people are moving from, and what it means, more importantly, for you, your community, in terms of the housing that you need, in terms of the jobs that you need to provide. But frankly, what I hear from business owners in this room is that their number one problem is finding the talent. We have 1,000 people a day that move to Florida. You've heard that statistic many times. But a lot of them are retired. They're not looking to come down here and work. So how do we keep the talent pipeline? How do we make sure that we have enough workers to ensure that we've got this economic engine to remain in place? And then how do we have the housing that is affordable for those workers so that they can stay here in Manatee County? Those are things that require serious people. That's why I'm so proud to serve with these serious people, and glad that you're here to make us better. Because whether we agree on any policy or not, you make us better by pushing us. Either you're with us or you're pushing us because you're against something that we're doing, like Mike Beltran would be. Either way, you make us better, and we appreciate it. Over to you, Jackie.
Thank you so much. And we are going to open it up in just a few minutes to questions from the audience. So this is a chamber member only event, and we certainly hope that this provides value to you in connecting with our decision makers in our community. Ben Bacher is going to be roving the audience with a wireless mic, and so a few ground rules, please, guidelines for our Q&A is please wait to be recognized. So if you could raise your hand, Ben will make his way to you with the microphone. Once recognized and afforded the mic, which Ben will keep a hold of, so he will be keeping his hand on the mic. If you could please introduce yourself and your organization. And then while at the microphone, if you could please refrain from long statements and jump right into your question. That will allow us to accommodate as many as possible. So Ben, while you're getting ready and folks are starting to raise their hand, one issue in addition to Rep. Gregory sharing priorities related to workforce development and housing costs as priorities for the community. It certainly is at the top of the list for our chamber members. Additionally, property insurance continues to be as well, both on the commercial and the residential side. And I was wondering, perhaps Senator Boyd, a couple of specifics about anything related to property insurance that we could share with our membership, knowing that in our surveys and focus groups with our chamber membership, it, along with workforce development and talent pipeline, continues to be one of the biggest challenges.
Thank you, Jackie. I'll try to be as brief as I can. It's a very complicated topic, and we've talked about it here before, and I would disagree respectfully a little bit with my colleague, Representative Beltran, in that insurance companies just keep coming back and wanting more and doing less. The reality is we had a situation, I've said this before in these meetings, where billions and billions of dollars were being lost by insurance companies in Florida, and primarily the domestics, which are the only ones left writing property insurance, for unanticipated losses. It was the unscrupulous roofers and the unscrupulous attorneys that got together and really perpetrated fraud on the system that no one ever expected in the billions and billions of dollars. 77% of the lawsuits on property insurance claims across the country were filed in Florida. 8% of the property insurance claims across the country were filed in Florida. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out something is wrong there. That's kind of where we were, and there's a lot more detail to that I won't go too far in the weeds on. Where we are today, while most of you aren't opening your mailbox and finding dramatic relief in your property insurance rates, there are very good signs in the market. The reforms we passed in December of 2022 are starting to take place. I said back then, as we worked through the committee process and the legislative process on the bills, it takes 1.5 to 2 years for those rates or for those reforms to start to generate positive rates. 2 weeks before session was ended, I met with the insurance commissioner, and he said he's starting to notice a downward trend in rates. And that's the first time he's been able to say that in a long period of time. I know probably the majority of the room hasn't experienced this, but I've talked to constituents and individuals who have seen their property insurance rates start to decrease. Again, that's not widespread yet. But the good news is the reforms are working. There's 8 or so new insurance carriers that have come to the market since then. Since the reforms were put into place. And there's a fair amount of activity even from the domestics that were here before looking for new opportunities of business. They're either taking business out of Citizens or they're expanding some of their reach into the communities that they serve across the state. So while it's not fast enough, we knew it wouldn't happen overnight. I do believe relief is kind of on the horizon. The one thing that we can't take our eye off is, and when you get your property insurance, if your insurance company and your underwriters are doing their job, they're probably letting you know that your home that was worth $400,000 or $200,000 3 or 4 years ago is probably worth $400,000 or more now. So those increases in property values are sometimes reflected in those rates too, which is a little bit different than just the true rate relief that we're looking for with the reforms we made. So it is coming. I would not sit here and tell you I believe it is if it wasn't. The experts in our state regulatory framework are starting to recognize it and see it, and they're holding insurers accountable too. And I have as well. I've said, look, you've got reforms that we all agreed needed to be made. Now it's time to put your money where your mouth is, trying to attract some of the national carriers back to Florida that weren't here, haven't been here for a while. The household names like the Hartford and the Travelers and the State Farms and the Nationwides that were always here but haven't been for 10 or more years. We're trying to get them back, and when we get a lot of those carriers back, and I believe that some of those carriers will come to this market, we will see the rate, I think it'll be reflected in the rates as competition drives rates. So long story short, that's kind of where we are, but I think the good news is coming. Disagree or you don't take the mic?
Well, here, let me start with this. I hope everything that Jim said turns out to be correct, right? I mean, my colleagues in the House and in the Senate, who I respect, they put together this package. They said the objective was to lower the rates, and I hope it eventually does lower the rates. I hope I'm wrong. I hope in a couple of years you say, Beltran, we don't want to vote for you anymore for anything because you were wrong. You voted against it. My rates went down, and you were wrong. I hope that's the case. Then I can go back and litigate and don't have to go to Tallahassee anymore, and you all have lower insurance rates. Okay? I hope that's the case. Here's the reason. There's just I just want to say one or two things. First of all, the rates haven't gone down yet. I don't think anyone's disputing that. And if that was in reference to the 2023 bill, that would be fine. Jim says that it takes a year or two for the rates to go down. So let's assume that's correct, because they do underwrite based on the loss experience. They have to accumulate the loss experience under the new regime to underwrite. But I've seen this movie before. You see, we started with the insurance reforms not in 23, not in 22, not in 21, not in 20, but in 19. We did AOB reform in 2019. And when we did AOB reform in 2019, they said it's going to take 18 months. And yet we came back in 2020 and we did more reform before those reforms were going to start showing results. And then in 2021 again, and in 2022 again. Every year they would come and say, the rates continue to go up. And at some point I said, well, you've been saying that the rates continue to go up, but you told me it was going to take a long time for the rates to go down from the first set of reforms. And either we haven't waited that period and to see if the rates indeed go down, or we have waited that period and the rates haven't gone down. So either way, you're in trouble. So still, from the 2019 reforms, we still haven't gotten the rates go down. Second thing is, yes, they were unscrupulous roofers. They were unscrupulous attorneys. I've never done an insurance claim, a property insurance claim in my life. But I'll say this about that, is we have a model for how to deal with unscrupulous actors, right? Everyone's got health insurance, okay? Some doctors are in the panel because the insurance company has verified their billing practices and their quality. Some doctors are not in the panel. You can't use your insurance, or you can't use your insurance on the same terms as someone in the panel. The insurance company can assemble a panel of roofers, put in their contract and get that approved by OIR, and OIR could do that. if they wanted to be serious about insurance reform. And then you have, it's only in property insurance where it's like anyone can repair your roof under any policy. And they tolerated the fraud for many years because it was easier to pass it on to the policyholders in the form of increased rates than it was to go and hire good lawyers to go into court and push back on the fraud. You start trying some of the fraudulent claims, go try fraudulent claims. Like, grow a backbone and litigate in court and push back on the fraud. Don't come to the legislature because you're too lazy to do that. If you've gone and litigated the cases and you still have a problem, come to the legislature, but we never got there. All the legislature says basically nobody, right, wrong, or indifferent, you can't bring any claims, and if you do, you're not going to be able to hire a proper attorney because of what they did to the statute. And I think that was an overcorrection, and there were some other measures that would have been more effective. So.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I think you all can see why it's challenging to be a legislator sometimes. So let's pretend for a second that Senator Boyd was the bill sponsor, and let's then pretend that Mike Beltran, if you're a senator, was the opponent of the bill. And you have someone like me, a simple real estate lawyer, that's trying to figure out who's right up there. And you really have to try to be a subject matter expert in almost anything. And in this issue right here, I don't have any experience except for paying property insurance on kind of what the correct policy is. But for me, why I voted for the bill and what Senator Boyd said that really hopefully continues to go down the correct path is insurance companies were fleeing the state of Florida. And what happens when that occurs? I'm sure many of y'all had this issue. Is you call up your agent and he calls the company and there's only one or two options. And that's the problem we're having. And pricing one or two options is a lot different than having 10 or 20 competitors. So I want us to get to a point, and I'm hopeful that the policies that we put into place get us to the point where these insurance companies, and it seems like it's happening, are coming back so they can compete for your business. You can go across the street and you can say, you know what, I don't think it should be $20,000 a year. I think it should be $15,000, and that's how true competition hopefully will work. It's a big issue. Like Senator Boyd said, we hear about it a lot. Maybe not as much as I heard about it a year ago, so I'm hopeful that some of you all are seeing some of that relief out there. But it's probably an issue that we will continue to address, and we have to address every session. I just don't want us to pass a bunch of stuff, because we already passed major legislation a year or so ago. We got to see if that works. And just passing stuff to come back here and say we passed something when we don't know if it will counterbalance what we did a couple years ago, I think is not good policy making. So from that perspective, I'm hopeful, optimistically hopeful, and we will keep working on this issue until we feel like it's under control.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
Jackie, that was coincidental but good that you picked two topics here for the beginning discussion between budget and insurance that that our good friend Mike Beltran pushes the legislative body. And you've heard us talk about how that's a good thing. And I'll just give you an example, and that is the insurance reform bill, because I carried it. I carried the tort reform bill last year. I got a lot of mentorship from Senator Boyd, great education in tort reform. But when you really get educated is when you're forced to defend the bill. And I was forced to defend the bill from my good friend and colleague, Mike Beltran. And what he did, just to give you behind the scenes, no kidding, we would meet in my office or his office, and he would poke holes and poke holes and poke holes in the actual language of the bill and your argument. And then I would make changes, and I'd make the bill better. And Mike would tell you that there were several areas that got better because of the legislative process. And I think that you are seeing the rates. I don't have the statistics at my fingertips, but there are rates flattening. There have been insurance companies returning to the market. The reinsurance market is growing. Senator Boyd will have to explain what that means. But I think what you're going to see is the money's going to follow the money. As the reinsurance market becomes healthier and money starts to flow, you're going to hit a tipping point. Those insurance companies will come back in, the money in the reinsurance market will come back in, and then more money will follow that money. But at the end of the day, we still live in paradise. We still have storms, right? We could eliminate all litigation, which wouldn't be good for you as policyholders, because then insurance companies may not pay ever, right? We can't go that far. But no matter what we do, there's still going to be storms in Florida. There's still going to be natural disasters and accidents, and that's going to drive rates. Senator Boyd?
Thank you. I know there are other topics we want to talk about tonight, but this is, when you poll Floridians, insurance issues are at the top of the list every time in every community. So it is a very important topic. I don't often disagree with a Harvard graduate, but for obvious reasons. But there is indication, as Chair Gregory just said, the rates are going down. They're not broad, they're not deep as we will expect and as will come, but there are rate reductions, and the insurance commissioners are reporting on that. So there is relief in sight. But finally, I'll say part of the, and Representative Beltran mentioned the assignment of benefits reform. What was happening was when you buy an insurance contract, it's between you and the carrier, typically. That's the way it should be. What was happening was these folks were going out when there was a storm somewhere in the area, may or may not have affected your house, and having you sign a piece of paper, basically signing your rights away to deal with your insurance company. So the first time the insurance company ever heard about a claim was when the lawyer that was tied to a roofer came to him and said, we had this bad issue, you can't repair it, we've got to replace it, and that drove the cost and the problem bigger and bigger. And that was the main problem. There were other problems, and as Representative Gregory said, we live in paradise, so people are moving here, and we have a lot more construction, a lot more homes, but we also live in a hurricane-prone area, so claims from those things drive rates as well. But those are anticipated. Those are anticipated actuarial science. These unanticipated claims are what really caused the biggest problem. And but the indicators are we're heading in the right direction. I'll leave it at that, unless somebody else has a question. And he's going to say one thing, but I am going to say, as it relates to the budget, I'm glad I didn't sponsor any projects with you, because I probably wouldn't be bringing money back home.
No, Jim, Don, I didn't do any projects. We did one in Sun City. I don't know who had that one, but anyway, I'll say this: the other night, I think Friday night, I was working on a brief, and I came across the statute. It was actually part of Tommy's bill, and it was the part that actually Tommy improved at my behest. It was something I was like, oh, that's cool. I was looking for something completely different. It wasn't what I was looking for, but I was like, all right, that's cool. That's what Tommy did based on our discussion. But Tommy did improve the bill. He did take some comments, and I had a pretty hard-hitting hypothetical that I brought up in the first committee, and he changed the bill to address that hypothetical. I was happy that the policy was improved. The debater in me, I have to confess, I was a little disappointed because I didn't get to use that line the next time we talked about the bill. But he did improve the bill, and I certainly appreciate the back and forth both up in Tallahassee and this evening.
Thank you. I think we'll move on to Q&A. Ben, do we have hands that are raised? If you could please identify yourself, and we do want them to be questions.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Mike Meehan, Manatee County citizen since 2003. As a homeowner here in the northwest part of Manatee County, I can tell you that my insurance, property insurance, has gone up 80% since 2021. So for me as a homeowner, that's a real problem. At the same time, I look at the surpluses that are being generated by Manatee County property taxes as a potential relief for me as a homeowner faced with rising insurance and rising property taxes. Just as an example, the surplus for the last 2 years is $560 million. Unrestricted cash is $843 million. I'm about to ask the question. So the question is, can that money that's been extracted from Manatee County taxpayers be sent back to them? As a Chamber of Commerce member, that's roughly $500 million above Florida's statute that's been removed from Manatee County's economy. It's no longer circulating. It's in a money market fund. So my question is, can that money, that excess $500 million of unrestricted cash, be sent back to the homeowners in the form of just a simple property tax rebate? Can it be sent back to them in the form of a really large millage cut? or can it be sent back to them in the terms of a property tax credit against 24 property taxes? Thank you.
Good question. And I appreciate that question. We actually talked about that, sir, right before we came on stage. I don't know the specifics as to how much reserves the county's supposed to have or not have. I suggest you, not to pump this, but I suggest you talk to one of your county commission. I know they approved their budget. This fiscal budget is already done, but certainly the next budget process is coming up. And certainly if there's more reserves and need to be made, that money should be returned to the taxpayer, whether it's by a millage reduction or otherwise.
Thank you. Ben?
Hey, Ben. My name is Tom Seguin, and I am a resident of downtown and had Suncoast Gem Lab for 41 years, recently retired. Thank you very much. But anyway, so my question is this. I saw that there was just a bill signed about people that are unhoused or homeless that are not going to be allowed to sleep in public places anymore. So if they're not allowed to sleep in public places anymore, then are there funds available to provide places like housing for them, or places where they can tent cities where they can stay? They can't. It's either they stay in public places, they sleep on the streets, or they go to jail. So, and then we have overcrowding in jails. So, is there money in the budget? We've got the bill, okay? Illegal for them to stay in public places. Where are they going to go? Is there money to provide from the state to provide for places for them to stay?
Well, the short answer to that question is no. There's not state money designated in that bill. But what that bill is designed to address is to protect businesses. The bill is designed to stop. You have cities around the state of Florida, not many, thankfully, but you have cities around the country where you've seen economies get entirely wiped out because homeless people do decide they'll just take over an entire sidewalk, right? They'll take over an entire block, and they build a de facto tent city, and now nobody wants to go use those businesses. So that bill is designed to provide an answer for local governments, really a mandate to protect your citizens, to make sure that you have law and order, to make sure you designate a place that you can sleep in public. It's going to be public property. You're going to be sleeping there, but you're not going to be doing it right outside the doors of this business because it's going to interfere with their right to own and operate a business. So there's not money associated with that because that's going to be the responsibility of each and every local government.
I would, Tom, thank you for the question. I was encouraged. I haven't talked to the county commission about it, but I read yesterday or today, I can't remember. They're already proactively putting a system in place where it helps find a spot, and there's and each community has to have a designated area where these folks can go. And rather than spread out all over town and in front of your business or mine or anyone else's, there's designated areas they can go. I think the city of Braden's already working on it, as are other municipalities. So there will be places designated, and those folks, my understanding is, will be directed there if they're found sleeping in front of Oscura tonight. They'll be escorted to the place that's designated for those individuals to be able to stay.
Thank you, Senator. Ben, another question.
Thank you very much. My name is Juan Pablo Salas from Sormar Media, radio stations in Spanish in this area, La Zeta, la número uno. I wrote down my question so I don't take too long. Let me try a Mike Beltran tonight. Last year you gave us SB 1718, and apparently it didn't work well because now we hear Governor DeSantis may call for a special session so you can create and approve another law similar to SB 4 in Texas, giving immigration power to local police, and with that act severing connections between police and many communities. We speak Spanish, and some of the communities affected listen to us. What would you recommend us to do? What would you recommend us to tell them to do once you create this new legislation? What's going to happen to them?
I don't believe there's any that I hear of, a special session to address that. I mean, certainly we are in the position we're in now because of Biden's open border policies and folks streaming over the border. So Texas has had to act. Florida has acted. I think we have some of the toughest laws in the nation. And yeah, this is a federal issue. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has absolutely abject failed us in this area. And that will be litigated during this upcoming election, hopefully. And the legislature, both last session and to a certain extent this session, has to act. Because we either have law and order and we follow our laws, or we don't. So if we need to have a special session to address, for instance, the illegal aliens coming in from Haiti, then I think we need to do that. Because it's an important issue to Floridians, and it's important that those folks are here legally.
Just to add to Representative Robinson's comment, I don't believe a special session is imminent. The governor suggested that as a possibility, but also at least the Senate president and her staff are looking at the law from Texas that's being appealed, and until that decision is made, it would be murky waters to try to do something similar or different without knowing what the disposition ultimately would be of that interaction with the court.
Thank you. Ben?
So my name is Justin Reynolds, Castle Rock Benefits. I want to first thank you guys. It's really nice to hear you guys communicate with each other, the camaraderie between you, so I appreciate that. I've been here about 10 years, and I love Florida, so you guys have done a great job, so I want to say thank you first. I would never move back to Atlanta, where I'm from, and Georgia does a pretty good job, too. So I want to follow up on the comment that Representative Tommy, or I guess Chair Tommy Gregory mentioned in regards to labor. So I own an employee benefits company. The single biggest concern that the hundreds of clients that I have voice every time I meet with them is labor. So you referenced that. I'd love to hear what you guys are talking about in Tallahassee, ideas and what some of the smartest people in the state are saying, and what you guys are trying to really put together as a plan to help the cost of living and to give them the ability to make it a place that, smart, talented people want to come live and work here in Florida.
Well, it's no surprise to anyone in the room that the areas, the prices of things that go up too fast are the things that are the most heavily regulated. So whether you're talking about insurance or college textbooks or healthcare, the more the government gets involved, kind of the worse we can make it. In other words, the government's not the solution to that problem, but we can be the problem. And so I think most of the solutions that I've seen discussed and put in place that are working are the areas where we're focusing on making sure the educational opportunities are available. Starting, from K through 12 with all the charter school programs that we have, the state college system, the university systems in Florida, the technical colleges, all the opportunities we provide so that parents that live here can demonstrate these opportunities for their children, get them to go to school here, have a network in place so that they stay here, so that businesses like yours have the confidence to grow. You say, oh, I have a talent pipeline here. Their kids are going to stay here. I know it's one of the reasons that my wife and I decided to retire here and raise our 3 boys, because we saw opportunities. We know the demand is here, and as we knock on doors, we all know that once you get past some of the partisan discussion points and you really get into what people care about, it's jobs, and for businesses, it's trying to find talent to fill those jobs. It's making sure that the roads are safer and that those opportunities are there for a quality of life. So I would say, again, the things that we're seeing discussed or talking about up there and the things that are proving effective are areas where we are removing, for example, license restrictions, giving more reciprocity, moving government regulation out of the way so that you can prosper right here in your local community.
And to supplement that, we have the #1 ranked higher education system in the nation. So certainly supporting that. We passed a major bill this year called Live Healthy. That's going to hopefully allow more resident slots and doctors. So I would say continually improving on quality of life, whether it's water quality, education, our beaches, and to make sure that we are in the best possible, our tax relief. I mean, I think our state is ranked as one of the better states in terms of tax relief, to keep folks here, to keep students here, to keep them wanting to live here, and to work on all those issues that trouble us, traffic, and no one likes to sit in that type of stuff. So all those things, bit by bit, building like a house, are very important to make sure that we keep that quality of life up very high, so we keep our Floridians here, our kids and our grandkids, and also we get those folks that want to move here and take and work for us. So that's really what our focus has been.
Well, I'll say, I mean, I agree with Will and Tommy. The primary role of government is to provide educational opportunities within reason, including higher education. I happen to think so-called Live Healthy was about $1 billion subsidy to the medical industry, so I voted against that. Sorry if you don't like that, but I did. I think was I the only person or the only Republican? I was the only person to vote against Live Healthy. I voted against Live Local last year. Same reason, $1 billion increased government spending. But on the labor issue, there were actually some things I guess I opposed, and I don't know if people agree with me or not. I'm going to tell you what they are, and you decide if you agree with me. I guess there were bills to essentially expand child labor that have like 17, 16-year-olds able to work longer hours. There was a bill that was targeted at regulations in Miami about heat exhaustion. We said essentially the idea was that municipalities and counties should not be able to make their own heat exhaustion laws by industry, by location. And just seems to me if you're a banker in Pensacola in January, you probably have no heat exhaustion rule necessary. If you're a farmer in Miami-Dade in July, then you probably need to have a heat exhaustion protocol. And so that is something where local government control is necessary. You do things at the lowest level of government that can do a good job. Local government, with all due respect, doesn't do a good job on everything, so sometimes the state needs to preempt. Sometimes the federal government preempts, and that's fine. But something like labor control for something that's kind of a local condition, I think that, I don't want to see some farmer in South Florida dying or going to the hospital because he didn't get a water break for 3 hours in the middle of the hot summer sun. There was a bill. We had a bill actually to increase the age for, I don't know what euphemism, I call it performing arts, but the adult variety, okay? It was to increase the age for young ladies to do that, or I guess young men if there's, anyone to do that from 18 to 21. Somebody tried to strip that bill off. They tried to strip the stripper bill on the last day of session. And what we needed to do was we needed to get 5 people. They were going to do it on a voice vote. They didn't want they didn't want to go on the board. Who wants to go on the board for that sort of thing in an election year? I said, well, if you're going to strip the stripper bill, I'm going to put you on the board. So I had 5 of my friends. I'm not going to tell you who they were. They said they were going to punish the people who were going to put everyone on the board, but 5 people have to raise their hands, and then you have to open the machine, and 5 people ask for the roll call, and you have to do the roll call, and they said they're going to punish them. Well, I was one of the 5. I'm not giving you other names, but I was one of the 5, so they can punish me, I guess. And you know what? Like 10 minutes before that bill was about to come up for a vote, the person who had that amendment to strip the stripper bill off, she had to withdraw it because she didn't want to go on the board for what she was going around telling everyone privately to do. So I think we should let kids be kids, and that's kind of, that was a lot of the labor law that we did this year. You all think what you think of that. I hopefully have laid it out cogently and persuasively, and I'll leave it at that.
If I may be so bold as to reference one of your colleagues who regretfully was not able to join us, but Representative McFarland's bill focused on child care and early learning from a workforce perspective, and increasing access is part of the bigger and very complicated process and mix that it is going to be required to remove as many barriers as possible for the workforce to continue to include and include even more everyone who would like to be working but perhaps has barriers that we haven't even mentioned yet here today. So she's to be applauded for that bill as well. All right, Ben, we've got, I think, Councilman, first, Sarah.
So, hi, I'm Sarah My company's called Spark Growth, and I know everybody except Mike Beltran today. But I'd like to celebrate first that research shows that cognitive diversity provides increased return on investment, and so pushing back is important. So, not to open the can of worms on undocumented immigrants. With MZ saying that there's not enough workforce, we are fortunate, I think, enough to have people that come from other parts of the country and people that have legitimately come into the United States, however that is, and could be part of the workforce. Is there anything that we are doing, like Jackie is saying, barriers to entry that could facilitate that? And I am referencing, I have personal data points on a project that we're doing with Haitian immigrants who have work permits.
Let's just be honest. I mean, you're talking about undocumented workers being in the workforce. I mean, they're in the workforce. Oh, okay.
I don't want to open, that's a can of worms.
Okay.
Just people that are immigrants from other countries.
Okay. Okay, well, but I'm gonna talk about that for a second because you brought it up. They are in the workforce. They're in the workforce to the extent of tens of millions. And I'll acknowledge the federal government we should have more guest workers. It should be easier to be a guest worker. It should be more efficient to be a guest worker. We should have more guest worker programs. The federal government hasn't done enough on that. But if immigration is really about guest workers, then people need to come in through the border legally and declare, hey, I want to go pick strawberries in Plant City. I want to go work tech in San Francisco. I want to do whatever they want to do, right? So I want to do hospitality, tourism, construction, whatever folks are technology, whatever folks are coming to the United States to do. And then we need to, if they're, pass a background check and they're law abiding and everything, then they should come in and they should do the work, within reason. So, but that's not what we have. We have open borders. We don't know if the people who are coming across the border are there to do some work or what they are, or who they are, or what numbers they're coming in and whatnot. So that's the problem. I acknowledge that, part of it, we need a federal solution. And then Florida has done a lot of things ad hoc in the state of Florida because the federal government hasn't acted. And it's, again, one of those things like the budget. We don't act when we're in charge. We don't act when the other party's in charge. When we're split government, we don't act then. And so it's gone on for as long as I've been alive. I think Reagan had the last time there was really something comprehensive was like the amnesty in the 80s. And then it started the cycle again. It didn't solve the problem. And so that created a perverse incentive, quite frankly. So we got to get the border under control, and then we got to have expanded legal permitted work. See, simple as that.
All right. This may be, I believe, our last question.
Thank you. Karen LaPensi, and I'd like to get back to insurance for just a few moments here. I'd like to find out in the recent legislative, is there's anything that has addressed the carriers charging homeowners for property that is over 40 years old, regardless of significant improvements?
Thanks, Karen, for the question. I don't think there was anything we did that addressed that specifically. Every carrier, though, that has the authority to operate in Florida, whether it's domestic or national carrier, has to file their programs and their rates with the insurance commissioner and has to have them approved by the insurance commissioner before they can have that program for homeowners or whatever in Florida. We have seen some movement with some carriers. At first, when we had this roof problem that we spoke of earlier, carriers were reducing the age of a roof to 5 years before. If it was 5 years or newer, they would write the coverage. If it's 5 years older, they wouldn't. We put a lot of pressure on them from our perch, and they've revised some of those standards, and now that's 15 years with inspections that can prove useful life, even to extend that a little bit longer. But there's nothing we did that would require carriers to do something to that extent. But the backstop, I believe, is the insurance commissioner has the ability to approve or disapprove of a program in Florida. So when they look at the forms that they file and the rates that they file, if they don't think it's appropriate, they can say, nope, we're not accepting those, and you have to come back with another proposal. So that is there in place. That's been in place and still is in place.
All right. Can we show our appreciation, please, for our senators and our representatives? Would you all like 1 minute closing comment?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us tonight. And I know some of the questions and some of the answers are tough to hear and to listen to, but I will tell you this, and my colleague spoke of it earlier, we have a great delegation, and we are working very hard for our community every day. We have a good working relationship with each other. We kid Mike a little bit, he kids us, but we have a good time, and that pushback is necessary and is important. And back to the bills that we pass every year, we only out of 2,000 or 3,000 bills, we only pass and get to the governor 300 or 400 bills, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We don't need more regulation. In fact, we ought to take some of the things off the books that we already have. But it's a pleasure to work with this team. I know they work every day very hard for each one of you and your businesses, and we'll continue to do that as long as you let us serve. But thanks for having us tonight. Thanks for listening to us, and thanks for the good questions.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Beltran?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for listening, and thanks for not rushing the stage and kicking me out or some of the things I said. So, it wouldn't surprise anyone to hear that, sometimes you go up to Tallahassee and it's the things that don't get done or that you stop from getting done that are kind of your chief accomplishments, especially when all your projects are going to be vetoed by the governor for endorsing Trump anyway, so you don't really file a lot for that reason either. But there were a lot of things that we prevented from going into law. I'm not going to say who the sponsors were, but there were bills to prevent it, make it harder to sue people who did environmental pollution. There were bills to make it harder to sue foreign government or foreign companies that send in carcinogenous pesticides. There was a bill that was going to make it harder for small businesses to access the capital markets in order to defend themselves in litigation against big companies. And these were bills I was trying to either improve, and eventually those couple of those bills didn't make it across the finish line. But that's part of the process as well as doing affirmative things. If all we did was prevent questionable policies or bad policies or policies that just need a little bit more refinement or need to be approached in a different way. I think that's a valuable addition. Obviously, we may not all be back together before November, or if it is, it'll be in kind of like a different type of venue where people are going to be asking for votes or running for some same or different office. I'll leave you with this. The Florida Supreme Court today approved 2 ballot initiatives. People tend to they pay attention to people like us. They don't pay attention to the ballot initiatives as much, or they don't have the information they need. These 2 ballot initiatives are harmful, in my opinion, and I'm not going to persuade everyone. If you're really into marijuana, you like to smoke marijuana, you're going to vote for that initiative. And if you interned at Planned Parenthood when you were in college, you're going to vote for that initiative. But if you're unsure, let me tell you, these 2 amendments are really extravagant pieces of public policy. Medical marijuana started as that. It's become de facto recreational. There's this amendment that would codify that. I went to a science high school in New York that was like some of the most brilliant people who are like 10 times smarter than me. They smoked pot, some of them in high school, some of them in college. They were never the same. They haven't been successful at all. I've seen it destroy a lot of lives. And on the abortion issue, everyone's got their own opinion and there's nuances, but this ballot initiative would codify through the second trimester that the government can't do any type of regulation whatsoever. No waiting period, no fetal ultrasound, no parental consent, no parental notification, no anything through the second trimester when the baby's basically viable, more than pain capable, and everything like that. I mean, it would really codify the most extravagant abortion on demand policies. It's not a middle ground. It's not something that protects first trimester, that pushes back on our heartbeat bill or anything like that. So really think about it. I'm not telling y'all what to do. Everyone's got an opinion of those issues. I'm not going to change. But I do want to at least use a few minutes just to draw those to everyone's attention. And it's now it's up to the electorate on Election Day whether that's what you want in your Constitution.
Well, I started off by saying I love Mike Beltran, and I still love Mike Beltran. I totally agree with you on the ballot initiatives, but I don't agree with you. I think I voted on 3 of those bills that you said you
put
killed.
them up. You
I
put
did.
them in with your
I did. And one of the most difficult things I've ever done in the legislature is chair a committee with Mike Beltran on it, because
Sorry.
keeping us on time, as you can see, even now, is a challenge.
Hey, come on, man. It took 3 minutes. Man.
But I do love Mike Beltran, but I also love this area, and I love representing you. And we've talked about tough issues, immigration, and our budget, and certainly property insurance. And look, we're all very advocates, and we love what we're going to do. But you think about it, we have a red button and a green button. You don't get a pink button or a light green button. You get 2 buttons, a yes or a no. And we do the very best we can sometimes to advocate our positions and press one of those 2 buttons. And hopefully we've done you proud. I think we did you proud this session, and we look forward to future tough discussions like this one. So thanks for coming out.
Thanks, Will. Representative Gregory, you can bring it home for us, Rep. Gregory.
I'll bring it home by talking about something that we haven't talked about. You didn't ask this question, but hopefully you've noticed that the news you hear out of Washington and these disputes over immigration and illegal immigration and all those hot button issues, those are problems which we all know they don't want to solve. If they wanted to solve those issues, they could solve them. They rather campaign on them and work against each other and give sound bites. But like Will said, hopefully in the Florida legislature, you've seen mostly back page news. What you may not know, and I think we should talk about it more and more in public forums, is that we break bread together. Not just the 4 of us, because we're in the delegation together and we're all in the same party and we get along most of the time on most issues. But the reality is that across the aisle, you break bread together. You have breakfast together, you have lunch together, sometimes we're having dinner together, sometimes we're having a late night snack together when we're there really long. But I have a lot of good friends, as do each of my colleagues here across the aisle. And I think that's why Florida works well, because we are friends. Even if we completely disagree, when you're friends with somebody you disagree with, you can quickly determine their heart's in the right place. I will tell you that we sometimes have some fun, too. I'll leave you with this. One of my good friends there this year gave me a book that said, why vote Democrat? But you could have it be titled the other way if you want for the purposes of this discussion. But I had a good time with my colleagues on the floor. When we're in the middle of debate, I would go sit by one of my Democratic colleagues on the floor, and I'd say, hey, will you sign this book I just got? Why vote Democrat? And you flip all the way through. Every page is blank. It was a lot of fun. And but they said the appropriate thing to me, and we got along. But listen, the point is, the story is that you can be friends, and you can, as long as you're serious and you spend that quality time together, and you get good policy for the state of Florida, and all of you benefit. And it's really been a pleasure to represent you in Tallahassee.
Thank you. One final round of applause. And I certainly want to thank you, our chamber membership. It's your investment in the Manatee Chamber that make opportunities like this possible, coupled with the willingness of the men and women who represent us at every level of government to interact with the business community, to hear our priorities, and to respond as well. So I wish you safe travels to your home this evening. Thank you to Spectrum by Charter Communications and Oscura for their partnership. Have a great evening.
Thank you.